Hello and welcome to the HarperCollins Children's Books Fall 2024 Librarian Preview. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions and will pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the Captions icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select Show or Hide Captions from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting Subtitle Settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. We have a wonderful program for you today, so without further ado, I'll pass things off to Patty Rosati and the Harper Stacks team. Take it away, Patty.
Thank you, Grace, and welcome everybody to our Fall 24 preview. We have three amazing, terrific creators with us today and a lot of great books to tell you about. So I want to get right to it, but I want to just give you a couple of tips. First one is, before the webinar, we sent a spreadsheet of the books that we'll be presenting today. So please feel free to use this to take notes, plan your orders, etc. Secondly, you can also request to download all of today's titles from both NetGalley and Edelweiss. In terms of picture books, the full PDFs are on Edelweiss only, and you can immediately access those by clicking the links on each entry. And then speaking of Edelweiss, you may want to spend a little time in the seasonal catalog that's linked at the end of this presentation to see a lot more fall books that we just won't have the time to get to today. There are some terrific ones in there, and I think it would be worth your time to take a peek. So let's get to it. Our first speaker is LeUyen Pham, the award-winning illustrator of more than 100 books for children. LeUyen is the Caldecott honor-winning illustrator of Bear Came Along. She also illustrated Julianne Moore's Freckle Face Strawberry series, Kelly DiPuccio's Grace for President, as well as the Princess in Black, Real Friends graphic novels, and Itty Bitty Kitty Corn series with Shannon Hale, to name just a few standouts in her illustrious career. In her upcoming fall picture book with us, LeUyen joins New York Times bestselling author Deborah Underwood to tell the origin story about a certain agrarian we all know. Let's let LeUyen tell us all about it. Please help me welcome her to the virtual stage.
Hi, everybody. I'm actually very excited to be here. I'm going to share my screen because I'm so terrible at technology, as we've all discovered. Let's see, share, and let me start my show. All right, this is me. And I am, as Patty has already introduced me, I am the illustrator of over 100 books. I'm actually at 140. And this book today is going to be 141, right? It's kind of nuts. I know. I just don't sleep at all. But what I thought I would do is, this particular story was so exciting for me to draw. It's one of my favorite books that I've illustrated so far out of the 140. But I thought what I would do is I would take you through the journey of how I approach a book from the beginning, so that you can experience how the story is made through sort of a little bit through my eyes. So to that end, I'm going to do something kind of weird. I'm going to read you the script as I got it, so that you can play the movie in your own head and see how the movie in your own head is going to match up to the way that I end up interpreting this. So The Man Who Didn't Like Animals by the amazing, wonderful Deborah Underwood. I love her writing. There once was a man who loved his tidy cottage and who didn't like animals. One day, a cat appeared. I don't like animals, said the man. Go away. But the cat didn't. The man liked sleeping in the sun, so did the cat. The man liked watching the rain, so did the cat. The man liked to eat dinner at precisely 6 p.m., so did the cat. Huh, said the man. Maybe this cat isn't so bad. The cat moves in. One day another cat appeared. Go away, said the man. I don't like. First cat looks at him. Second cat moves in. One day a dog appeared. I don't like dogs, said the man. Go away. But the dog didn't. The man liked watching the sunrise. So did the dog. The man liked gardening. So did the dog. The man liked taking walks. So did the dog. Huh, said the man. Maybe this dog isn't so bad. Dog moves in. One day, another dog appeared. Go away, said the man. I don't. Cats and first dog look at him. Second dog moves in. Next came a duck, and more ducks, and a chicken, and more chickens, and a goat, and more goats, and a pig, and more pigs, and a cow, and more cows, and finally, some cranky neighbors. You must get rid of those animals, said one. This is not a farm, said another. I thought you didn't like animals, said another. The man had thought so too. He called a meeting. The animals gathered round. I'm sorry, but you'll have to go, he said. The animals filed slowly out the door, one by one. As they grew smaller, the man's heart broke right in two. Wait, he called. The man loved his tidy cottage, for sale sign in the house, but he loved animals more. And that's how it all began. E-I-E-I-O. And then that's the story that I got as I received it. And usually what I do is before I even start tackling the story, I try to figure out what are these characters going to look like, because it's going to establish the mood of the entire book. So of course, going through, I look at all the classical stories because it's the classical story of how Old MacDonald came about. So I'm going to start looking towards the 60s and the 70s because I change my style all the time and I'm always sort of being inspired by other stuff. So we've got Animal Farm looking at, obviously. I'm looking at a lot of Brian Wildsmith because I love his animals. And then I'm looking at Toot and Puddle because who doesn't love Toot and Puddle? And from that, I start sketching and I come up with this. So this was my initial sketch of how I thought Old MacDonald was going to look with all his animal pals. And I thought, very classical look. Let's see where this goes. So now I'm just going back to the story and I'm going to start taking the story apart. And the first question is, what is the actual story? So I think we can all agree the actual story is there once was a man who didn't like animals. And his entire character arc is that by the end, he loved animals more. So I know that's going to be our main hero. We've got to establish from the get-go that he does not like animals. So any opportunity I can get to show him not liking animals, I'm going to do it. And the first time he encounters the very first cat, that first cat that he runs into, that's going to be the catalyst that changes everything in the story, which means that there are secondary visual stories. So you've got the main arc of what's written in the text, but Deborah allows me all these little hints as to what else could be interpreted in the story. So in the visual story, not only is the man changing, but we have the cat, the very first cat. And this first cat is important because, like I said, she's the catalyst from which everything else grows. So she's going to have her own specific narrative. Not only do we have the cat, we've got another cat and a dog and another dog and a duck and so on and so forth. All of these animals are going to have their own visual narrative in the story. It's not going to be in the words, but it's going to be in the pictures. So each of these characters, if you follow them through, will have their own story. Not only that, but there is one more set of characters that we failed to mention. Who else? It's the cranky neighbors. The cranky neighbors are important, and they are mentioned in the end of the second act, which doesn't allow them a lot of space in the story to thrive. It means that they have to appear visually in the story much earlier so that the stakes are set. So we're going to add these three neighbors, but not only that, we're going to up it up a little bit by giving each of them their own individual pets so that they are animal lovers. And the arc of this man going from not liking animals to liking animals is more strong. The irony there is stronger. And last but not least, we've got this. This is the only element that's added in the story that suggests who this character is, E-I-E-I-O. And that's when I realized this story is a mystery. I need to hide as much as possible the fact that I am describing Old MacDonald visually in this story. So it means that this first drawing that I devised is not going to work anymore. It's too much of a giveaway. I've got to make it so that he's a little more urban, so that he's not out in the country anymore. And it's got to have a little bit more of a New Yorker style edge, which means the style changes to something like this. So given all that, let's see how well my movie in my head matches the movie in your head after you've read the script. So I'm going to read you the entire story now with the illustrations, and you can sort of compare with in your own head. The man who didn't like animals. And notice the first major change I make is that he is no longer living in a cottage. He is living in a home, an apartment in the city. And these are my thumbnail sketches that come before the final illustrations. Here it is. I've got a chance to set up the character as not liking animals. Anytime that an animal shows up, he's going to show an ugly face for them. Anytime his neighbor shows up with each of their animals, and look, the neighbors have all made their appearance here. They each have their own pets, and he does not. And our main character, Emily, the little kitty, she's off in the corner already. She's been introduced. There once was a man who loved his tidy home and who didn't like animals. This image is filled with clues. You can go through them later and find them. One day, a cat appeared. Meow. I don't like cats, said the man. Go away. But the cat didn't. The man liked sleeping in the sun. So did the cat. The man liked watching the rain. So did the cat. The man liked to eat dinner at precisely 6 p.m. So did the cat. Huh, said the man. Maybe this cat isn't so bad. One day, another cat appeared. Go away, said the man. I don't like... Nothing said. Notice their names, Emily and Eli. One day, a dog appeared. I don't like dogs, said the man. Go away. But the dog didn't. The man liked watching the sunrise. So did the dog. The man liked gardening. So did the dog. The man liked taking walks. So did the dog. Huh, said the man. This dog isn't so bad. One day, another dog appeared. Go away, said the man. I don't. Let's not even bother. Emily, Eli, Ivan, and Isabel. Next came a duck and more ducks, and a chicken, cluck, cluck, and more chickens, and a goat and more goats, and a pig and more pigs, and a cow and more cow. And finally, here come our neighbors. Some cranky neighbors. You must get rid of those animals, said one. This is not a farm, said another. I thought you didn't like animals, said another. And again, this page is filled with clues. Ozzy, Isabel, Olive, Ishmael, Iris, Eli, Emily, E-I-E-I-O. The man had thought so too. He called a meeting. The animals gathered round. I'm sorry, but you'll have to go, he said. The animals filed slowly out the door, one by one. As they grew smaller, the man's heart broke right in two. Wait, he called. And there's a quiet moment where his character completely changes. The man loved his tidy cottage, but he loved animals more. And that's how it all began. E-I-E-I-O. And yes, those notes are the song, Old MacDonald's. And these are the last end pages. And that's it. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, LeUyen, for sharing that story with us. I love getting to see how that evolved through your illustrations. I mean, I couldn't have picked a better way to kick off our picture book presentation. My name is Christina Carpino. I'm assistant manager on the school and library team. And next slide. In addition to The Man Who Didn't Like Animals, we have a couple more awesome books for you to add to your storytime rotation. Next slide. How to Sing a Song is from Kwame Alexander and Melissa Sweet. They're back, and this time joined by composer, author, and performer Randy Preston for How to Sing a Song. As with the previous books in this series, lyrical text accompanies colorful collage illustrations that will engage and inspire readers. It's a perfect addition to music and movement storytime programs. Next slide. And speaking of movement, moving is a big change that many children face at some point. Sometimes they have to move more than once, and sometimes, like the illustrator Tom Booth, they have to move 7 times, and that was just while he illustrated this title. Full of wordplay and humor and pandas, this book is a perfect way to talk about the big feelings that go along with a move, whether it's big or small. Next slide. And we have a bunch of books in our Best Books for Storytime campaign. Here are some of our summer titles as well. And next slide, we have a guide that you can download on harperstacks.com. So feel free to go to this link. It has activities that you can do before and after reading. All right, next slide. Still life paintings are where everybody's supposed to stay still. But what if it doesn't? Acclaimed author Alex London has teamed up with Caldecott Medal-winning illustrator Paul O. Zielinski, the creator of Z is for Moose, for a hilarious and subversive picture book about how art takes on a life of its own. With highly detailed illustration, this title begs to be read over and over. Next slide. You can take a peek at some of the art here. Next. And new from Alan Say, speaking of Caldecotts, we have another medal winner on our list with Alan Say's Tonbo, this lushly illustrated story about a man who unexpectedly finds himself becoming younger and younger. Next slide. It's a stirring tale of memories and creativity that will inspire a whole new generation of artists. Next slide. You can see it's got really gorgeous art. I definitely recommend checking out the full PDF on Edelweiss. Next slide. We have a couple of great creators here. The Verts from Anne Patchett brings us the delightful story of the two Vert siblings who couldn't be more different than one another. Esty loves being around people and wants to throw her brother Ivan the best party ever, with lots and lots of guests, sparkles, and fun. But is this what Ivan really wants? It's a perfect title for teaching about personal boundaries and empathy. And with City Full of Santas, Joanna Ho realized that there isn't a single Christmas picture book on the market featuring Asian protagonists, so she set out to create one. And in this story, a little girl wants to meet Santa, but when they arrive in the big city, she wonders how she will discover which Santa is the Santa. Next slide, please. And we have a couple of new Indigenous voices here. We have It's Powwow Time and Stitches of Tradition, which both touch on the different things that are worn during these during these celebrations. Next slide, please. And Drawn Onward, Daniel Nayeri is the author of the Prince Award-winning Everything Sad is Untrue, the Newbery Honor-winning The Many Assassinations of Samir, Seller of Dreams, and now the phenomenally beautiful picture book, Drawn Onward. In this first picture book from Harper Alley, Nayeri weaves a mesmerizing and heartfelt journey of grief, hope, and discovery with gorgeous illustrations from Matt Rockefeller. And it's a very unique picture book because it's palindromic. And what does that mean? Well, you can take a look at these spreads here. These are the first two layouts of the book on the top and the last two layouts on the bottom. And you can see how the panels mirror one another in reverse order. Again, take a look at this one on Edelweiss. Next slide, please. Cafe at the Edge of the Woods is when an aspiring chef opens up a cafe beside an enchanted forest. They didn't expect the customers to have such peculiar tastes, though. This hilarious and charming picture book is perfect for story times with older readers because there's no way that those persnickety second graders at your outreach visits won't laugh when an ogre demands pickled bats that smell like farts. Next slide, please. Best in Show, this is a picture book featuring 18 different poems about dogs, and each one is illustrated by a different creator, including favorites like Oge Mora and Raoul III. Next slide. Changa and the Moon is the first in a new series we're excited to launch called Everlasting Tales. These picture books will feature fairy tales and folk tales from around the world, beautifully illustrated and retold for today's readers. The first in the series tells the origin story of the Chinese goddess of the moon, whose bravery and selflessness saved her people. And you can also see a sneak preview of the second book in the series, which is The Salt Princess, coming in winter of 2025. Next. On a much sillier note, John Hare brings us Duck, Duck, Goose, which is a picture book perfect for emerging readers, full of wordplay, rhymes, and a little bit of a science connection with the story of seasonal migration. Next slide, please. Next, we have some nonfiction to add to your picture book collection. Cicely Tyson was an acclaimed and trailblazing actress whose on-screen presence and personal style inspired many. Next slide, please. One of the neatest things about this book is the unique illustrations, which are actually sewn by Sherry Shine. Next slide. She used fabric and quilting techniques as an ode to the fashions of that Cicely so loved. It's a really unique illustration style. Next. Another inspirational story accompanied with beautiful illustrations is Up, Up, Ever Up, the story of Junko Taibei, the first woman to summit Mount Everest. Next slide. A quite literal trailblazer, Taibei opened up the world of mountaineering to women while promoting environmentally sustainable practices to ensure that generations to come can have their own adventures. Next. And a couple of other nonfictions for you. Star in the Maestro is a kid-friendly tribute to creativity, music, nature, and friendship based on the true story of Mozart and his pet bird. And Jasmine Warga, Green Architect, is the biography of Pakistan's first female architect who invented sustainable and affordable housing amidst natural disasters like earthquakes and floods. Next up, we have some libros latinos. Pockets of Love is about one of my favorite foods, empanadas. It's Mommy's birthday, but Grandma is no longer around to make her favorite treat. Star and Sebi step up to the plate to try to make the best birthday surprise. And I Am Salsa, Marisol's family loves to dance, and every Saturday night they come together to salsa. But Marisol struggles to keep up and watch from the side until her papa gives her a little help to feel the beat and join right in. And we have The Last Tamale, and it is the family's annual tamalada, but when the three cousins all want the last one, how will they decide who gets to eat it? This picture book is a fun celebration of family, food, and friendly competition, sure to leave you hungry for more. And next slide. We're going to wrap up our picture book section with some of the fabulous I Can Read books coming out this fall. As you know, these titles are the best thing to hand emerging readers. We have a great mix of new and favorite characters to get kids excited about reading. The Geisel winning series by Corey R. Tabor continues with the new Fox title, Fox Plays Ball. This time he's playing ball with a mismatched group of animals, including an elephant and a snail. Big Dog, Little Dog, we are super excited to bring this series from Dogman creator Dave Pilkey to I Can Read. Everyone's favorite cat is back with Pete the Cat and the Wright brothers, and you guessed it, he's going to help the Wright brothers build their first airplane. And I Want to Be an Artist. A young artist explores the many types of artists in our communities, including sculptors, photographers, and graphic designers. And believe it or not, this is our first Curious George I Can Read. We're thrilled to be bringing this favorite character to our youngest readers. And Chip Plays Grown Up, last but not least, is a hilarious new I Can Read comics series from Maggie Frost that also incorporates plenty of SEL themes like self-advocacy and delayed gratification. And that's all for our picture book section. Be sure to check out Edelweiss and you can access full PDFs of all of these titles and more.
Thanks, Christina. That's a really good list. I love seeing them all together. And that image of Pete the Cat flying that plane is hilarious. Anyway, we are now going to move into middle grade, and I would love to introduce you to Jasmine Warga. You know Jasmine, she's the author of many YA and middle grade books, including Other Words for Home, A Newbery, Charlotte Huck, and Walter Honor Book, and most recently, A Rover's Story, which is a book that's captured the imaginations of kids all over the country. Just a year after publication, it's already landed on 21 state award reading lists and sits high on the New York Times bestseller list. It's just out in paperback, and I think Rover's Story is going to reach even more kids this summer, turn them on to one of the best authors writing today. So this success may seem hard to top, but I think Jasmine has outdone herself with The Strange Thing Happened in Cherry Hall, a terrific mystery story about two friends, a ghost, a missing painting, and a turtle named Agatha. Please help me welcome Jasmine Warga.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I am super excited to be here and get the chance to talk with you about A Strange Thing Happened in Cherry Hall. So I'm really quickly going to share my screen here. There we go. Oh. And then, Hooray. Okay. So I thought I would start by sort of just giving a little bit of an elevator pitch for A Strange Thing That Happened in Cherry Hall. So it is a book that centers around an art museum, the Penelope L. Brooks Art Museum. And when the book begins, we learn that a painting has been stolen from this museum. But the painting that's been stolen was not a particularly famous painting. It was one of those paintings that hung in the back corner of a room that nobody really thought that much about. It's not the type of painting that someone went to the museum to see. And not a lot is known about the painting. The artist is pretty obscure. The painting depicts a girl standing under a tree, and no one really knows who the girl in the painting is or why the artist chose to paint her. But now, since the painting is missing, everyone is super curious about all of these things. And most of all, they're super curious about why someone would go to all the trouble to break into this museum to steal this one obscure painting when there were so many other more valuable paintings that they could have taken. And when the book begins, our main character, Rami, is at the art museum, and he spends a lot of time at the Penelope L. Brooks Museum because his mother works there. And this afternoon, he's sitting there bored, and all of a sudden, he sees a girl, and the girl looks almost exactly like the girl who's depicted in the painting that has gone missing. And this sort of sets off our story. It sets off lots of questions about who is this girl? This girl claims she has no idea who she is. She doesn't even know her name. And the question is, why can only Rami see her? And why doesn't she know who she is? And what does that mean? And so Rami is trying to figure out how she could somehow be connected to the painting that has gone missing. And so part of the book unfolds from Rami's perspective while he goes on this journey trying to figure out who this girl is and try to figure out the mystery of the missing painting. Another part of the book unfolds sort of from a mystery narrator perspective that gives us some more background information about the creation of the painting. And we start to see how this storyline intersects with Rami and the girl in the museum story. And then lastly, my favorite perspective in the novel is that of Agatha, who you can see here on the cover. And Agatha is the turtle who lives in the garden behind the Penelope L. Brooks Museum. And Agatha knows a lot about who took the painting and maybe why they took the painting, but she can't quite get the humans in the book to pay attention to the clues that she's leaving. So all three of these viewpoints sort of intersect with one another and weave together to hopefully create a really satisfying and twisty mystery. And so when I started to tell people about this book, the first question I tend to get asked is why a mystery? And that it seems like a genre departure. Though I will say that for me, I feel like if you look at my middle grade books, the only consistent genre pattern is that there isn't one. I've written, a novel in verse about a young refugee girl, and then my most recent book, sort of a science fiction adventure story about a robot on Mars. And I think that I switch genres a lot because the themes of my books are similar. I think I'm always sort of writing about what does it mean to find belonging and what does it mean to find home? And this book is no different. And I'm going to talk about that more in a little bit, but I wanted to focus in here on this question of sort of why a mystery. And this is the first time I've intentionally tried to write in a specific genre. And I intentionally tried to write a mystery because while I was doing school visits for Other Words for Home and for a Rover story, I kept being asked by kids over and over again, are you going to write a mystery novel? And I thought this was such an interesting question. I was sort of confused about why this genre over all the others seemed to be the one that they were the most clamoring for. And then I was sort of thinking about myself as a kid and how much I loved mystery novels and how much I particularly loved mystery novels because sort of at this age of being a middle grade reader, the world kind of felt like a mystery to me. And I also felt like in lots of ways, there were lots of things about me that were a mystery to other people. And so I was thinking a lot about the appeal of mysteries and also wanting to write a book that would feel fun in this moment where I feel like it's really, really hard right now to be a kid. And so I was thinking I wanted to write a mystery, but I couldn't quite figure out what my mystery was going to be. And then I had an experience while I was on a panel at a book festival, and we were asked to all sort of describe our middle grade selves using one word. And I thought about it for a while and I chose the word hiding. And I felt like that really was the best way to describe my 10 or 11-year-old self. And that I was hiding. I was hiding from bullies at school. I was hiding from the world. I was really, really afraid of being seen, but I also sort of desperately wanted to be seen. And I'm sure those of you in your library, you have those kids, right? Those really shy kids, those really lonely kids who are sort of terrified of being noticed, but also desperately wanting to be noticed. And that sort of feeling is what sparked the storyline here. I wanted to write a book about loneliness and what does it mean to feel alone? What does it mean to feel like an outsider? But I also kind of wanted to write about this idea that sometimes when you feel invisible, you maybe notice things that other people don't notice. I always say that I think in lots of ways I'm a writer because so much of my childhood I felt like an outsider and I learned to observe the world and to be curious. And so I wanted to write a book that was sort of an ode to that, about what does it mean to feel invisible and then to see something that is seemingly invisible? And then lastly, the way that sort of art played into this was I'm sort of a collector of ideas. So I had this idea of wanting to write a mystery, and then I was thinking about loneliness and this feeling of feeling invisible, and how do I connect those? And then I was visiting an art museum, and I was going through, just walking through the halls, and I was thinking about all of the people who are sometimes depicted in these paintings and wondering about their stories and wondering why the artists chose them and what does that mean and what would it mean if you digged further into it. And so I started thinking about this idea of how art helps us to connect, right? How it helps us to feel represented, and what does it mean to see yourself in a work of art, and how can that help you to feel less lonely? How can that help you to feel braver to reach out and connect with other people? And so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of my inspiration. So here on the screen, you can see 3 of the covers of my favorite books, mystery books from when I was younger, books like Holes and From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler, and of course, The Weston Game. And I was thinking about all of those books while I was writing this book, of wanting to write a book that had sort of that sort of classic whimsical arch narrator style, that maybe would play with a couple of different timelines in the way that Holes does. And, Weston Game is a book that's told from so many different perspectives, and sort of using that to flesh out a mystery. And then I watched the Netflix documentary about the Isabella Gardner Museum, and that really sort of got my imagination going about this idea of that art heist still being unsolved. And what is so sort of fascinating about it is that no one quite understands why the thieves took the certain pieces of art that they did. Some of the pieces are really high value and make sense, but others seem really random. And so I started thinking about, why would someone steal a specific piece of art, and what does that mean, and why would they want that particular piece of art? And that really weaved its way into the story. So now I wanted to just share with you a couple pieces. Matt Rockefeller has done really beautiful interior art for the book, and at the beginning of the book, there will be this image, which is sort of the cast of characters. Again, I sort of wanted the book to have this sort of classic feel. I was sort of inspired also by some of those like quirky older French films. And so here you can see the list of characters, and this is a book where I feel like all of the characters, they really connect with one another, and the way that they connect with one another isn't immediately obvious at the beginning of the book. So we have our main character, Rami, and we have his mother, she herself works on the cleaning staff of the museum, but is also an artist in her own right. There's Dr. Hale, who is the director of the museum, Ed and Theodore, who are the security guards, H.F. Bottomtoe, who is our mysterious, obscure artist, who everyone is curious to know more about and try to figure out sort of what she could possibly know about her painting that has been stolen. And then the character of Vida is one of Rami's classmates, and he ends up connecting with her because she is sort of this like mystery detective podcast obsessed kid who's really into the mystery and really wants to help, and sort of is one of those characters who really helps Rami to come out of his own shell and sort of learn what does it mean to make a friend. Blue is obviously she is the mysterious character. She is the girl who's shown up in the museum and she has no idea who she is. And this is really what I wanted to play with, this idea of that I feel like sometimes coming of age is a mystery, right? This idea of who am I? And so while it is a book that is a whodunit, it's also a book about sort of the mystery of, you know, who am I? Who am I going to be? And so that's it. I hope it'll be a fun mystery, but I also hope it'll be a book that will connect with those kids who are lonely and maybe sort of struggling with those similar identity questions. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you so much, Jasmine. That was absolutely amazing. And I'm sure it is currently being added to everyone's TBR and buy list. So hi, everyone. I'm Mimi Rankin. I'm Associate Director of School and Library Marketing here at HarperCollins Children's. And I'm going to very quickly tell you about some more great middle grade that we have coming this fall. Next slide. Thank you. Let me get to my notes. Okay. So Amari 3 really needs no introduction. B.B. Alston has taken the world of middle grade by storm in this very fun supernatural investigations series. This is the third book, like I said, in a pitch perfect middle grade fantasy series full of magical world building, witty humor, and genuinely surprising twists and turns. So we cannot wait for this one. Next slide, please. All right, Gracie Under the Waves. I absolutely love this jacket. It's just so bright and fun. Newbery medalist and all-around acclaimed and beloved author Linda Sue Park has written another fantastic middle grade voice, and this time she gently addresses climate anxieties of kids, particularly in this generation, through snorkeling, which is very fun. Next slide. Still Sal. This is a new young middle grade book from legendary Kevin Henkes. This is a standalone companion to the Newbery Honor the Year of Billy Miller. It's a really funny story about Billy's sister Sal on her first day of first grade. So it's a fun school story. Next slide, please. All right, we've got some great fantasy and sci-fi for your middle grade readers. First, on the left, we have The Daggers of Ire. This is a Latinx fantasy about magic and sisterhood and grief from New York Times bestselling author J.C. Cervantes. In the middle, we have Splinter and Ash, New York Times bestselling author Marika Nijkamp's middle grade prose debut is an immersive medieval fantasy starring queer and disabled young heroes. This is for fans of Soman Chainani and Tamora Pierce. And then we also have a split second. This is New York Times bestselling author Janae Marks, and she delivers a stunningly crafted and twisty mystery about the tests of friendships and examine what matters most when everything can change in a split second. Next slide, please. All right, we've got some really legendary creators on this list, these two included. So first we have Amazing Grapes. Jules Pfeiffer brings the fantastical to life. This is signature style in this zany, whimsical adventure, which is a graphic novel about a family on a quest to find their mother and save another dimension. And then we also have That Curious Thing from two-time Caldecott Medal winner Chris Roshka. It's a delightful middle grade adventure about an evil secret society of cats who plot to exile all dogs to space. So this feels incredibly realistic to me as a huge dog lover. So I hope everyone enjoys it. Next slide, please. All right, so there's some more contemporary middle grade. We have On a Wing and a Tear, a living legend roosting in the backyard, an unmissable game, a hair-raising mystery, a road trip full of adventure and danger, and all the overlapping circles that connect us through creation. I'm absolutely thrilled to have a new novel from Heartdrum imprint author-curator Cynthia Leidig-Smith on this season, and that is such a beautiful jacket. And we also have The Girls of Skylark Lane. This is National Book Award winner Robin Benway's debut middle grade novel. It's Babysitter's Club meets The Sandlot when twin sisters join a ragtag neighborhood girls softball team at a time when growing up could mean growing apart. Next slide, please. All right, we've got some more really fantastic protagonists in these books and some of my favorite authors. So Quagmire Tiarello couldn't be better. I'm obsessed with that title. This is a fiercely independent, nonconformist. Quagmire must recalibrate his formidable survival skills when his mother's unstable mental health forces him to build a new life and forge new ties with found family. This is from the author of the most recently Playing Through the Turnaround, which is another one of my favorites, and my team loved. And this is author Melissa Larson. And then there in the center, we have this riveting historical middle grade novel from Newbery Medal winning author Avi. And it follows a young immigrant from Italy who is desperate to reunite with his family after getting separated at Ellis Island. And then there on the left, we have Unsinkable Cayenne. When her unconventional parents finally agree to settle down in one place, 12-year-old Cayenne's dreams come true. The reality of fitting in is much harder than she imagined. Acclaimed author Jessica Vitalis crafts an unforgettable historical novel in verse about belonging, family, and social class. This is set in the mid 80s around the discovery of the Titanic wreckage, hence the title. Next slide, please. All right, we have got What Jewish Looks Like. This is a really beautiful title. Celebrate the diversity of the Jewish diaspora with this engaging middle grade anthology of illustrated biographies of 36 Jewish luminaries of all races, ethnicities, genders, nationalities, and identities from across many centuries. This is compiled by anti-bias, anti-racist educator Liz Kleinrock and author Caroline Pritchard. Next slide, please. All right, we've got some great nonfiction on this list too for middle grade. Virus Hunters is a propulsive nonfiction look at the elite squads of scientists, doctors, and infectious disease experts who guard the boundary between public health and pandemics and how they gather data via boots on the ground or shoe leather epidemiology, which I love that phrase, in order to save lives. And this covers a variety of pandemics and epidemics that have happened throughout the centuries or throughout time, really. And obviously, this is going to be a great one for kids who kind of lived through the COVID era and getting disrupted in schools, but also adults who want to just learn more about the history of pandemics. We also have The Hill, and as we head into a new election, The Hill is a perfect deep dive to explain the 10,000 staffers who work in the Capitol building, as well as a history of the building itself. Next slide, please. We've got some great graphic novels on this list too. Wingborn is the Wingborn is the anticipated sequel to the best-selling Wing Bearer from Marjorie Liu. Right in the middle, we've got Noodle and Bow, which how cute is that? It's a whimsical and empowering middle grade graphic novel who follows a girl who helps her friend's humble food cart stand its ground against gentrification of their Chinatown neighborhood. And then we have the third First Cat in Space and the Wrath of the Paperclip, which I love. If you recall, little Clippy from Microsoft Word back in the day, that's what I feel is in this book. Award-winning creators Mac Barnett and Sean Harris are back with the third volume of this best-selling series. Prepare to meet an evil paperclip, space dinos, and another adorable bunny, which I love. Next slide, please. All right, we hear you. We've heard over and over from librarians and educators about how difficult it can be to navigate middle grade and teen books, to find the ones with the most appeal for 7th and 8th grade students specifically. Maybe you have an advanced reader who has torn through every middle grade book in your library, or maybe you have a struggling reader who needs something high interest but at an appropriate reading level. We've put our heads together and assembled an amazing list of books that you can feel confident handing to your 7th and 8th grade readers. This campaign includes recent favorites and reliable classics from a variety of genres, so there's something for everyone. But first, I'd like to tell you about some of the titles that are on our fall list that perfectly fit in that wheelhouse. Knox Winters and the Midnight Wolf is the first book in a rich, eerie middle grade fantasy duology. Side Quest is a standalone graphic novel history of graphic, I guess, nonfiction of the history of role-playing games. Shadowed is a moving novel about basketball and friendship with a 15-year-old protagonist, Nate, and he struggles to understand what makes a friend and what makes a teammate with life-altering results. And then Take It From the Top. This is set at a camp over the course of 6 summers, and this contemporary realistic novel follows the friendship and falling out of 2 girls from different backgrounds, all while during a summer camp production of Wicked, which just feels very on brand for myself and also very timely with the new Wicked movie coming out. And I think that is it for middle grade. So again, these are on NetGalley and Edelweiss, so you can request to download those now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mimi. I mean, the fact that mid-80s is considered historical fiction, I don't know, still just makes me pause, but I get it. We're going to talk about teen now, and I'm going to introduce you to one of the best-selling teen writers and a woman who's writing amazing books for us, and her name is Kendare Blake. She's the #1 New York Times best-selling author of the 3 Dark Crown series, which to me is a series that you just have to finish in one sitting. There's no 2 ways about it. She is also the author of Anna Dressed in Blood, Girl of Nightmares, Anti-Goddess, Mortal Gods, and Ungodly. Her books have been translated into over 20 languages, have been featured on multiple Best of the Year lists, have appeared on dozens of state reading lists, and received a constellation of starred reviews. The perfect blend of literary and commercial, Kendare's books are just what you and your teams are clamoring for. This fall, we're thrilled to be publishing the follow-up to her acclaimed Champion of Fate. We're also thrilled to have her here with us this morning from California. Please help me welcome Kendare Blake.
Hi. Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much. Hello, librarians. I'm very excited to be with you today to talk about my new books. I'm actually coming to you from Washington. So as you can see, it's not sunny. It's not California. It's like gloomy and Fork style. That's where I live. So let me quickly share my screen. And we're going with that screen. That's the one I like. All right. So here we go. Thank you again for having me. I am here today to talk to you about my Hero Maker duet, which kicked off last year with Champion of Fate and concludes this October with Warrior of Legend. It is the story of a young woman named Reed, who was orphaned at a young age and raised by an immortal order of warrior women whose task is to guide heroes to glory. So essentially, they put kings on their thrones, they counsel warrior queens, they guide heroes of all types. And unfortunately for Reed, sometimes those heroes turn out to be absolute beefcakes. So what is it about? It is an epic fantasy. It's a story of this young woman and her quest to become a full member of this immortal order because they're essentially the only family that she's ever known. And to do this, she's been training for such a long time and working so hard. And her last task is to have her first hero assigned to her, and she has to guide him to his first glory on the battlefield. So it has bitey horses. It has unhinged warrior women, of course. It has an immortal order, and it has clashing heroes. It's also in the same universe as my Three Dark Crowns series. When I started writing Champion of Fate, I didn't know how entwined the series were going to be. But honestly, by the end of Warrior of Legend, they're like this. So if you have any Three Dark Crowns readers, you might want to point them in that direction. When I was working on the book, I gave all my books code names. This book's code name was Amazon Jedi, because I was trying to create a world where what if the Amazons from Wonder Woman kind of operated like the Jedi Order? So that was one of the general vibes. I took a lot of inspirations when I was working on this: Arthurian legend, Greek myth, Alexander the Great, the Trojan War, and these are all things that I really loved reading about when I was a kid. I find that really wonderful about being a young adult writer and writing for teens is just that I know from the stuff that I read when I was young, how much the stuff that I loved back then just keeps coming back and re-inspiring me, and that's like the magic of story. So particularly these heroes, Achilles and Hector. Side note that has nothing to do with anything. I took these photos off like 2 separate Google searches. I already had the Achilles one, and then I just popped that Hector one in on the other side. And then I looked at them and I'm like, what's over there? Like, why are you guys both? Okay, anyway, they were both like looking in exactly the same direction. I just thought it was dumb. Okay, last inspiration behind this series is actually my bitey horse. So this is my bitey horse. Her name was Lassie. She died when I was writing this book, but don't be too sad. She was my childhood horse and she lived to a very ripe old age. She was the meanest horse on the planet and I loved her very much. So if there's a whole lot of horse stuff in this book, in these books, which there is, blame her. I've inadvertently written a book for horse people. But also for anybody who likes a kind of a feisty animal sidekick, I always have those in my books. So in this case, they're horses who like to beat on you. There were a couple of general vibes that I really wanted to nail within this series, just vibes that I really enjoy as a reader and as a lover of entertainment of all kinds. So first was the bitey horses. That felt very important. And then the unhinged warrior women, that also felt very important. But I also wanted to get, you know, that relationship that young Anakin and Obi-Wan have in Star Wars, that master and apprentice kind of thing, where Anakin's like, I can so do it, I can so be a Jedi, and Obi-Wan's like, patience, Anakin, you're annoying. So this is basically my whole series in vibes. Yeah, that's a double hit. It's a double hit from the horses. They're really nasty beasts. So, but is it romantasy? We've all kind of seen romantasy explode in the last couple of years as a category, and I've watched a lot of interesting debates online about like what exactly romantasy is. And I don't know, like is it fantasy with romantic elements? Is it romance with fantasy elements? Does it require a happily ever after like a romance does? Because in fantasy that actually rarely happens. I mean, by the time we get to the end of a fantasy saga, our heroes usually prevail, but they've lost all their limbs and their kids are dead. So like bittersweet. Is it fantasy romance where both fantasy and the romance elements are absolutely necessary to the plot? I think definitely, but I also think that because romantasy is so new, we've just got a lot of choices and we can, you know, say whatever we need depending on the reader mood. So if you have a reader who's looking for romantasy, Hero Maker is a romantasy in the sense that the love story is absolutely necessary to the plot. Like the whole plot hinges on it kind of, but it's not the actual focus. Instead, I use romance as more of a plot complication. So in short, Reed is focused, very intensely focused on becoming a member of her immortal order. And then her hero keeps showing up, you know, like that, like not now. I don't know how many times in the narrative when I was writing it, I just had to be like, focus, girl. Kids. I realized I have a lot of Brad Pitt in this presentation. That's a total coincidence. I just did like a search for dancing man and there it is. There he goes. Okay, so in summary, Champion Fate, we got bitey horses, we got unhinged warrior women, we've got an immortal order, we've got clashing heroes, and then coming in October, we have Warrior of Legend, where the horses are even bitier. The warrior women are still unhinged. There's a hero swap where Reed has to become a matchmaker and has to wear a terrible matchmaker's outfit. It is her worst nightmare. And then we also have some monstrous beasts. So I hope your readers of epic fantasy will really enjoy it. I have really loved writing it, and yeah. So that's all. That's all I've got for you.
That was you've done our work for us. That we could use that as an ad. That last slide that you had, fighting horses, unhinged warriors. We'll just use that. It's perfect. And I loved all your thoughts about romantasy, which of course, you know, all of us who work with teens, young adults, you know, people can't get enough of it, me included. So, so thanks for your thoughts on that. I think it's an important conversation. Thanks. I am going to tell you, I'm going to zip through some teen books, and Grace is going to do the slides for me. So we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so first up is, look at that jacket, love it. This is from award-winning author of Like a Love Story and Only the Beautiful Moment, who just won the Stonewall Award this year. We love him, we love his books. This is a suspenseful contemporary YA about loss, love, and the mysteries of the desert. I don't normally go into plot, but I think the plot here is good. I mean, they're all good, but this one I think will maybe grab your attention, grab mine. The book's about 15-year-old Cam, and he is head over heels for Ash, the boy who swept him off his feet. But his family and friends are worried. Some of them say something's kind of off about Ash, who has the habit of disappearing, at times for days. And when Ash asks Cam to join him on a trip to Joshua Tree, the two of them walk off into the desert, but only Cam returns. So 2 years later, Cam is still left with unanswered questions. So it feels like fate when a school trip gets him back to Joshua Tree. And on the trip, Cam's looking for closure about what happened to Ash, but instead he finds himself in danger of facing a similar fate. In the desert, he's got to reckon with the truth of his past relationship and the possibility of opening himself up to love again. It's gorgeous. It's another winner from an author who is absolutely at the top of his game, and we publish in September. Next slide, please. So from continued love for those amazing books by Madeline Miller, Circe and the Song of Achilles, to the recent development of Alex Bracken's Lord adaptation, readers are really still clamoring, I think, for reimaginings of Greek mythology. For those readers, those many readers, Gentlest of Wild Things by the author of last year's Lies We Sing to the Sea is a sapphic fantasy that blends the story of Eros and Psyche and legends of the enthralling vampiric Imposa. Lies, by the way, is just out in paperback. I think it came out last month. And I highly recommend that if you didn't catch it in hardcover. And I highly recommend adding this to your TBR. I think this author absolutely can be compared to Madeline Miller. Next slide. We have 2 books here from Hartram imprint. The first one is a terrific, scary debut. I think this is a good book to hand to those readers who really like horror and scary stuff. This is, again, a debut novel by Cheryl Isaacs. She is Mohawk, and it pulls the readers into an unsettling tale of monsters, mystery, and secrets that refuse to stay submerged. And the next is from our friend Jen Ferguson. Here she's written a powerful story about teens grappling with balancing resentment with enduring friendships and about how to move forward with a life that's not what you would imagine. You know Jen from The Summer of Bitter and Sweet. It won the Governor's General Award. It was a Stonewall Honor Book and a Morris Award finalist. And also those Pink Mountain Nights, which we published last year, and that was a Kirkus Best Book of the Year. It's 2 great ones from Hartram on the fall list. Next slide, please. Some really terrific sequels to tell you about. The first is Eliot's sequel to The Darkness Outside Us, which was a Stonewall Honor book. Here it's another ambitious genre-bending novel, epic love story that spans thousands of years and the far reaches of the galaxy. Blood Orchid, amazing jacket, returns to the world of the critically lauded The Scarlet Alchemist with a twisty sequel. This one picks up just where the first book left off. And then last but never least is Cinda Williams Chima, Runestone Saga. This draws on Norse mythology. It's ambitious, it's lively, it's well told, as all of her books are. And we will publish this in October. Next slide, please. More fantastic fantasy, I should say. Songlight is a debut, and I think this is one you hand to fans of Saba Tahir. It's the first in a powerful page-turning trilogy. It's set in a future dystopia in which 2 girls hundreds of miles apart are bound by songlight, which is the forbidden ability to telepathically communicate. And then Legends of the White Snake. This is a story based on one of China's 4 great folk tales. While the tale is well known, Legends of the White Snake centers on a male-male couple. So even readers who are familiar with the original legend will find new elements to love and Cher's retelling that has all of the ingredients of a successful romantasy. Minus bitey horses, though. I don't think we have any of that in this book. Here we have 2 wonderful LGBTQ books. This first is What Is This Feeling? You might know Robbie Weber from his joyful queer rom-coms, If You Change Your Mind and I Like Me Better. This 3rd book absolutely delivers the same fun, larger-than-life summer vibes, follows a boy who will do anything to win his drama club scavenger hunt in New York City, even if it means teaming up with a tech crew loner and discovering unexpected sparks. Lots of theater nerd Easter eggs throughout for those who like that kind of thing, like my colleague Mimi. She'll love it. And then we have Rabbit and Juliet. Rebecca Stafford is an award-winning author, poet, and critic. She's published in The New Yorker, The Nation, and the Boston Review. Rabbit and Juliet is her first foray into YA fiction, and it's a haunting, irreverent contemporary novel about agency, grief, and toxic first loves. Next slide, we thought we would tell you about a couple of adult books, the books that are publishing on our adult side that I think teens are absolutely going to love. And first up, of course, is Rainbow Rowell. This is actually coming out in July, not in fall. It's coming out real soon. And it's called Slow Dance. And it is her first book for adults since her 2014 bestseller Landline. This book is about Shiloh and Carrie, who were best friends in high school, but they were only friends. Everyone thought they were more, but they were just friends. Now it's, then they go their separate ways. Now it's years later. Shiloh's 33 years old. She's divorced. She can't believe that Carrie is coming back into her life. They meet up again at a friend's wedding. It's a story of two kids who fall in love before they know enough about love to even recognize it. It bounces back in time. It goes back to the 90s, to teen Shiloh and Carrie, and then to the present. And it is terrifically smart. It is a laugh out loud funny. It is sexy. It is wise. And if you, like me, are a giant fan of Eleanor and Park and Rainbow's adult novels, you and your patrons, I think, will love this and gobble it up. So I highly, highly recommend. The next book is The Doll Makers, Lynn Buchanan, standalone fantasy from a debut author about a world centered around destructive, all-consuming monsters, the magical dolls designed to fight this force, and the artisans tasked with creating demon-slaying dolls. So it's a touch fantasy and a touch horror, and I think it's good for fans of the works of T.J. Klune and Travis Baldry. And then this last one is a graphic novel. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous, full-color graphic historical novel that explores the friendship and feud between Ida B. Wells, and Frederick Douglass. And it offers incredible new insights into slavery and incarceration in the United States. It's written by Michael Ralph, who is the chair and professor of the Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. And I don't know when Michael sleeps because he also teaches at the NYU School of Medicine. That's a terrific book, and I think makes a lot of sense for some middle schoolers and high schoolers who are covering these towering figures in their classes. And those are some of the adult books I thought you might want to see. I think that's it for time. As I mentioned earlier, check out the Edelweiss collection. Again, we only have an hour or so we can't present everything to you, but we have lots more books. So take a peek, get a cup of coffee, and take a peek through that collection. Galleys are available on Edelweiss and NetGalley. Mimi has said that you can email her if you have any questions or want some follow-up. She will respond to you. And I think that's it, Grace, unless we've got some questions for our creators. I really want to thank them all. Your presentations were great, so thoughtful. I learned so much. I can't believe what you all packed into 10 minutes. And I know it's not easy to put these presentations together. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know I'll be sharing them more widely. And I hope that some of our friends who are listening today will share with their colleagues and with their patrons as well. I'll stop talking, Grace, to let you tell me if we have any questions.
Thanks, Patty. We do actually have one question that if our special guests are willing, we'd ask them each to give one answer. And the question is, what inspires you outside of writing? And I think we can go in reverse presentation order. So we can start with Kendare and then Jasmine and LeUyen. So Kendare, what inspires you outside of writing? I know you touched on it a little bit during your presentation.
Nothing. I have no interests outside of books. No, I honestly, these days I spend my life like buried underneath cats and dogs. I just got a new puppy, so like my whole world is just animals, animals, animals all the time, but also food. I love food. I'm a huge foodie, and you can usually tell when I'm writing when I'm hungry because that chapter will be all about something that they're eating.
Oh, I love that. Animals and food can't go wrong. All right, Jasmine, how about you?
Yeah, so two things popped immediately into my head for this. The first is sort of the natural world. I feel like my brain always comes up with the best ideas when I sort of unplug and go out and like take a hike in the woods or something like that. And then I sort of touched on this in my presentation, but also getting to do school visits and interacting with young people today. I think that when you write for young people, it's so hard because you're trying to remember back to yourself and what you were like. And I feel like from those interactions, I feel that connection back to my 10, 11, 12-year-old self really comes back to me with more strength.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. All right, LeUyen, close us out. What inspires you outside of writing?
God, I've been doing books now for like 25 years. I think this is my 25th year. It's a little nuts. But I think what's been most inspiring is that because I've been doing this for so long, I've got to say this like at least 2 generations of kids growing up on the books that I've done. And to see like from the beginning to the end, just a couple of weeks ago, I actually did a school visit where the girl at the school was giving me a tour. She seemed really excited the entire time to be there. She was a teenager. I thought, how does she even know my work? I do mostly picture books. And at the very end of the entire day after touring, she told me that she was the little girl that I had been talking about for years about how I had signed her book and she had cried, and I told the story over and over and over again. Stuff like that, when you realize the far-reaching effects that books have in kids' lives, you don't understand it when you're sitting at home at your own table. But when you're there and you see the effects of what these stories have on these kids in the future, like that's amazing to me. So that's probably the thing that inspires me the most.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, and I'm sure there's going to be a whole new generation of readers inspired by these upcoming books as well. Thank you. That is all the time we have. And a huge, huge, huge thank you, of course, to our special guests and to the entire Harper Stacks team. This was a really special presentation. We're very excited we got to hear about these new titles. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, title list, slide presentation, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Staff training, in-services, local conference, Booklist can help. You can now request free copies of Booklist and Booklist Reader for upcoming staff training programs so you can help the next generation of library workers become readers advisory and collection development superstars. Scan the QR code on the screen, visit our website, or email info@booklistonline.com for more details. Whether you are traveling overseas, across the country, or via armchair this summer, we have your next beach read. Subscribe now to get print and digital copies of Booklist and digital and shareable issues of our new patron-friendly product, Booklist Reader, for a special webinar price of $99. In addition to these publications, you'll also get archive access, extra online content, and our 2024 Guide to Graphic Novels issue mailing this July. Head over to the Booklist website for details. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to all of our panelists and to our sponsor, HarperCollins Children's Books. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.